Chris Jones from Edward Jones joining us now live on Live at 5. We've got big midterm elections coming up November. The economy's been humming along pretty good. Stocks near their record levels.
Yes.
How should we be watching what goes on at the ballot box in relation to our investments that we've got?
Well, we'll be hearing a lot of news again on what you just mentioned on trade tariffs and international things that are going on. I think in my 38 years of doing this in the business, I found that elections, whether they're midterm elections or general elections, they typically long-term do not have enough to really warrant for people to get nervous or make any major changes. Even though there's more uncertainty, as you just alluded to, the markets have held up pretty well here recently with new highs in both the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. So I kind of look at elections as being, the studies that I've seen show the months before, a couple months before the election, the market was up. And actually, if you go back historically, a couple months after the market's been up.
We're right there, that first note, we have market more powerful than politics.
Exactly. Yeah, you really look at the long-term numbers, you'll see, again, the 2 months before the election, midterm, we've seen the S&P up around 1.8%. And the 2 months after the election, we've seen roughly an average of 4.7 increase. So, and even if those numbers don't come in, past performance is no guarantee of results in the future. But I think, again, my experience would indicate that I don't think anything major will happen with the election that should derail long-term investors' plans.
They say don't mix friendship and business together. They don't mix politics and your own investing together as well.
Oil and vinegar, you can come up with a lot of do not mix. But yeah, I think politics is one thing you can look at. There could be some effects further down the road, but I think most of us are aware that there's been more gridlock in recent years. And even if they talk about policy changes, sometimes those could lead to more gridlock in the short term.
Tough to get anything done.
Yeah, the market doesn't like uncertainty, and I think that's the reason when we have corrections or dips in the market, it's usually some situation that might be temporary, but eventually we get beyond that problem and we'll move into a new batch of problems. So
focus on yourself and what you want done.
Keep your eye on the ball, as they say in sports, and take a long-term opinion, viewpoint, review your investments on a regular basis to make sure you're properly balanced, and stick to your long-term plan.
All right, well, I think regardless of which direction this election goes, everyone will be happy to see it over once we get there.
Nice to get the yard signs out of the yard again.
That's right. How can folks reach you at Edward Jones?
I can be reached at my office at 1005 West St. Martin's Drive here in St. Joseph. Plus, we have roughly 8 other locations to serve the St. Joseph area.
You got it. Chris Jones with Edward Jones. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Alan.
All right, when